Hi, everyone. Good morning. For today's webinar, we're pleased to share with you some exciting and important new features from our product release 17.0. These updates were designed to increase efficiency and save you time while improving visibility and flexibility within Specright. This is actually our first product release webcast, and now we'll be hosting these quarterly with each new release. But we'll also be sprinkling some more in between that focus on major features and key integrations, and many of those will include guest speakers. So please look out for those announcements throughout the year. So for today, we'll take about 30 minutes to dig into the details of our new features and show you a few live demos, and then we'll save some time at the end for some Q&A. I'm Steve Weber, Senior Product Marketing Manager at Specright, and joining me is Ravi Gandhi, Director of Product, and Dharmendra Bernaj, Technical Product Manager. And also on the call, we have Eamon Shukri, our CTO. So thanks so much again for joining us today. And with that, I'll send it over to you, Ravi.
Thank you, Steve. So let's get right to the updates. One of the features that we have been working on for the past several months is now finally available to all our clients, and that is the Compass integration. With this feature, we continue our focus on sustainability. At Specright, we want to put sustainability at the forefront of product development. Currently, the sustainability measurement comes much later in the life cycle of a product. With our Compass integration, you can conduct LCAs, that is lifecycle assessments, so much more faster and more frequently. The integration not only enables analysis of individual product bill of materials, but also supports comparing data for multiple BOMs at once. You also get single-click access to previously run analyses with integrated single sign-on to Compass. We feel that this feature is going to be a game changer as far as product development goes, since the product data is analyzed in real time, and this enables companies to spot and act on opportunities such as material substitution or SKU rationalization instantly. A few minutes later into this webinar, we will take a look at a live demo of this integration. At this point, I'll let Dharma talk about the next feature, which is Spec Compare, since he's actually worked on this feature and shipped it in the release. So over to you, Dharma.
Thank you, Ravi. The next exciting feature we are launching in this release is specification comparison. In short, we call it as Spec Compare. So several of our customers have requested to provide a solution for comparing two specifications side by side. And right now, we are really thrilled to announce the initial version of this Spec Compare feature. So until now, how users used to compare two specifications? It was a very cumbersome process. So what users had to do is they had to open each record in two separate browsers. They had to resize their tabs and to fit the monitor, and they have to manually scroll through both the tabs and compare all the fields side by side. And just listening to this, it's very cumbersome process, and it's very time consuming, and it's prone to errors. And that's why we are launching the Spec Compare feature. And with these features, users will have an ability to compare two records of a specific record type side by side, and it will provide the visual representation. If there are any different values between the two records, then those will be highlighted in the red background. And the beauty of this feature is that we are going to maintain the similar layout as of the parent specification type. So all the fields will be grouped together, and the order will also be maintained in the sequential order, so it is not confusing for you guys. And there are additional features which we have added on this screen itself, is that you can see there are clickable links. So you can directly navigate to any specific record which you are comparing if you have to make any edits. And we think that with these features, there will be an improved efficiency for all our clients who are using different revisions for any specific specifications. So it becomes very easy for all our customers to easily compare two records and make any edits. And with this, I will hand it back to Ravi to cover additional features which we are launching in this release.
Thanks, Zama. I think the Spec Compare is going to be huge, and it's going to really benefit a lot of our customers. All right, so next, let's talk about a significant update to our popular visual hierarchy feature. As we are aware, customers using sub-assemblies in their products can use Specright to easily build relationships to other parts. With visual hierarchy, you can quickly connect and track what parts make up the sub-assembly, as well as which finished goods use the sub-assembly. Visual hierarchy allows users to see a tree view of all the items in the BOM in one place, as you see in the image over here. The users can expand or collapse different levels of the hierarchy to quickly view or navigate to any component in the hierarchy. So the visual hierarchy feature earlier was only enabled for 4 objects on Specright. These were spec family, which is also typically called finished goods, specifications or packaging specifications, formulas, and ingredients. Starting in this release, the feature can now be used on any other object as well, including on custom objects. All right, the last feature we would like to highlight today is the unit of measure conversion for textile units. Specright has a very handy UOM conversion feature. This allows automatic calculation of alternate UOMs so that key weights and measures for a specification can be shown in 2 different units at once. Our customers that work with textile specifications can now use the auto conversion feature for textile units of measure, such as DTEX and KTEX. So there are 4 conversions that we are enabling with this update. The first one is converting between DTEX and NEC. The second one is between KTEX and grains per yard. The third one is TPI and TPM. And the fourth one is converting between KTEX and Hank. So as soon as you edit and save one of the 2 fields, the other one is updated automatically. Now let's jump into a couple of live demos of the features, and I will start with a demo of the Compass integration. All right, so here I am within Specright, and I'm on the spec families of the finished goods screen. So the Compass integration, like I mentioned earlier, is really to enables you to run LCAs or lifecycle assessments on your finished goods. So if you click into one of these finished goods, there are some fields and some data which is relevant for you to run these LCAs, such as the base unit, the manufacturing region, the end of life or the use region. There's also other information such as the brand, the category, right? Which is useful when you're running these reports on Compass. And then if you talk about all the components that make up this finished good, if I go to the related tab, you have these specifications listed here, right? And the important thing to note here is that along with the specification, it also lists what kind of or what level of specification it is, whether it's a primary, secondary, and tertiary. This is important information for Compass. So if I go into, let's say, the glass jar, again, within each component, there are certain elements and certain fields which are going to be very useful for Compass, such as the material, for instance, container glass. There's also the recycled content, that is the PCR content, and then there is the mass of the material, right? Also, for instance, the manufacturing or the conversion process. So I'm pointing out and showing you all of these fields because this is basically information that we will send through the integration from Specright into Compass, right? If I go back, you can see, the finished good here is made up of the glass jar. It has a rubber seal and a paper label at the primary level. At the secondary level, there is an enclosure as well as a paper postcard. And then at the tertiary level, like all of the primary and the secondary components are enclosed within a box, right? So there are a couple of ways to initiate the integration. One is by actually going to the Compass tab, right? So I can go in here and then I can start typing in the name of the finished good and it will show up the results and you can select what you want, right? The other way to do this is if I go back into the finished good and right on there, there is a button for initiating the LCA. So I click on the Run LCA button and this will bring me to the Compass screen right away, right? So as you can see here, not only is the spec family populated, there will be the components that are pre-populated as well. the primary, secondary, and the tertiary ones, right? Along with that, there are some certain other units of measures, quantity, and unit systems, which can also be selected here. There are certain defaults, right, for these. So the unit system is an important one depending on the way you are capturing the information within Specright. You would want to select the right unit system over here. Unit of measure, there are 3 options: each, case, and palette, right? And then you can change the quantity, and this really changes the actual reports within Compass. So really, all of this is pre-selected. The only information pretty much you would need to add is the project name. So let's say I add that. And one thing I'd like to point out here is you can also add additional finished goods, right? So this allows you to actually do comparisons of the sustainability metrics within Compass. So for the purpose of the demo, we're going to go with one finished good as only. And then to initiate the integration, all I got to do is click export to Compass. Now at this point, we are going to single sign on into the Compass system, right? So you are going to be logging in using your Compass credentials, but those will be pre-configured on Specright. This means every time you click on this integration and export it to Compass, it'll be single sign on. As you can see here within Compass, the information comes through, and all of the information can again be edited if you'd like to do that. So if I click on the finished good, the package itself, I was showing you earlier within Specright, there was some fields such as the manufacturing region, the end of life region, right? The unit of measure, the quantity, all of this information that we bring over from Specright. And for each of these components as well, we can see the material, the recycled content, the PCR, as well as the mass, right? This is information that we send over from Specright. In addition, you'll see that there's also the number of secondary packages per tertiary, or the number of primary packages per secondary, right? So these numbers that you see here, these are also mapped from Specright. So these can come from the Specright data itself, as well as the occurrences, right? So in some cases, let's say you have a couple of labels. So in this case, 3, for instance, right? So this is also something that we send over from Specright. So really within Compass, there isn't much that you need to do to generate the report. All you got to do is click on this icon, and this gives you the results, right? It gives you the fossil fuel use, the greenhouse gas emissions, and other such metrics, important metrics on sustainability. Like I said earlier, you can still kind of go ahead and do your scenario analysis. You can, for instance, open up one of the components and change, let's say, the recycle percentage, as I'm going to do right now. Let's say I change that to 80%. And when I run the analysis again, it's going to recalculate and show you the updated metrics. So that's pretty much it, right? You can see how easy it is to actually run an LCA. It took me a few minutes to show you this, and that's pretty much what you will take to run the LCA yourself using the integration. Back in Specright, as you can see, there's an activity tab on the Compass tab itself. So there's a subtab called activity, which will list all the analyses that you have run in the past, right? So for instance, this is the one that we just initiated. It already created an entry right here. And there is a link to quickly go back into the analysis, right? So if you come back at a later date and you would like to access this analysis within Compass, you can do that right from within Specright. So that's the Compass integration for you. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand it over to Dharma, and he's going to show us the Spec Compare feature.
Thank you so much, Ravi, for the excellent demo on the Compass integration within how we can integrate the Compass with the Specright. Now, the next demo which I'm going to give is the Spec Compare feature we just discussed about. Let's see how we can use the Spec Compare now. So we have provided 2 different approaches to initiate the Spec Compare. One is through the Spec Compare tab itself. So as you can see, there will be a tab in your home screen. If you want to compare any different specification, all you have to do is click on the spec compare, then it will open up this screen. As you can see here, we have provided the first field is specification. Here you can select any specification family in your in the Specright. So let's say if you want to compare ingredients or formulas, those you can select any specification for the comparison. So let's say if I want to compare the packaging specification, so that's first entry which we have to select. The second option, as you can see, the record type which popped up, because for this specification family there are different record types, and you can select any of these record types from here. So the reason we have to select this one is because we gonna use the similar page layout when we pull up the comparison screen. So that's why we have to select the record types here. So let's say I want to compare the records from the folding carton record. That's the second field which we have to fill in. The third is by default we are assigning as a show everything. So this is a display type. On the final comparison screen, if you want to see all the fields, or if you just want to see the differences, or you want to see the fields which have the equal values. So these are we are providing three different options over here. So let's say if for now we want to go with the show everything, and later I will show you how the differences looks like. So the next field which we have to select is the specification type, the actual records. So here we for this initial version we are providing the two records to be compared. So here you can search for the record itself. As you can see, as you were typing, we were automatically populating the values for each for the records which matches with that specification name. So here as you can see, we have the uh, specification name, description, and the status. And these search parameters, those are configurable. You can select any different, you want to select the version or who created it, all those are configurable in the system. So let's say I want to compare the 6-pack folding carton with the next version, the next revision for this one. So that's my revision B for the 6-pack folding carton. And let's hit compare. So as you can see in this screen, with single click for the compare button, we were able to see all the differences side by side. Let me go through the screen how it's been what it's showing. So as you can see, we selected the specification type. So we're gonna the screen will show you what specification it is talking about, and on the left side we will show the specification one, and on the right side we'll have the second record detail which we are going to compare against. And as you can see, we are grouping all the fields in the subsections. So the initial first screen will have the information, and this is why we selected the record type when we were filling up the search criteria. So the first is information, then the supersede structure. So all the layout, the initial layout will be retained as is, and the order is also maintained for all the fields so that it is not confusing if you are using the specific specification in the system. And as you can see here, let's see how it's comparing. As you can see, the internal part ID, the revision B, the description itself is missing over here. So that's why it's highlighted in the red background. And the other fields, those are same. So those won't be highlighted in the red background. So as you can scroll down, this is so easy to compare different specifications. As you can see here, the overall net dimensions, there is some mismatch over here. So uh, everything is easy to view side by side with the highlighted background. And if you want to make any change for this particular field, then you can do that. All you have to do is that these are links where you can click on this link and you can go to that specific record details page itself. And if you want to change these details, you can just click here. It was 9 by 4 by 3. So it matches with the original draft, and The second approach for comparing the specification is we have provided a compare button right in the record detail page. So if you click compare here, so as you can see here, we are pre-populating all the default fields here. So because we know that the specification, the record belongs to the specification type as packaging specification here. The record type is the folding carton, and by default we are selecting show everything. The specification one is auto-populated, and I want to compare this against the initial version just to make sure that everything is fine and ready to approve. So as you can see here, these basic details are uh, fine here. And you can see we are able to change that value, and we were easily able to update the fields. So this is one option. We can compare the different specification. The other option which I was talking about is what if I want to see only the differences in those two specific records. So you can change the show differences. Here what it's going to do, it's going to show only the differences. So, and the fields which have the same values, those won't be displayed here. And you would ask why the fields are not highlighted in the red background, because since we selected the display type as differences, all the fields are having the different values. That's what it is. And this is the initial version of our spec compare feature. We are continuously going to improve this feature based on your feedback. We have already planned some new improvements in this feature, so those will be rolled out in the upcoming months. And with this, I will hand it over back to Steve.
Okay, thanks very much, Ravi and Dharma, for sharing that in-depth look at all these exciting new product enhancements and capabilities. So as far as next steps, we ask that you contact your sales rep for more information or to discuss your account. Please share these updates with your teams and help us spread the word about these great features. And as always, we appreciate your continued feedback and input, which really helps us to improve the usability and experience for all of our users. So thanks so much for joining us, and now we'll open it up to answer any of your questions. So if you have any, please enter them into the chat window. And we've got actually got a few coming in now. The first one, how does the licensing work for the integration, and how does the integration identify the Compass account to connect to?
Hey, Steve, I can take this one. So yeah, each user on Specright that wants to use the Compass integration would configure their Compass software credentials within Specright as a one-time setup. So it's pretty much a one-to-one mapping between the Specright login and the Compass login. So, I mean, you still need your Compass account, and all you got to do is, for the SSO to work, configure the Compass credentials within Specright in a secure fashion, of course. Hope that answers your question.
Okay, great, thanks. Another one is, what kind of sustainability metrics can we pull back from Compass?
So that's a great question. I mean, you saw within Compass, there was definitely the main idea behind the integration and the Compass software is to kind of generate the greenhouse gas emissions, the fossil fuel use, and all of those metrics. And we have already had requests, from customers that have seen this, to get some data back into Specright. The initial version does not bring this data back into Specright. We have already discussed this with our partners at Compass, and a future version will include fetching these key metrics back in. Right now, the initial version will not have those.
Okay, great. And then one final question. In Spec Compare, do we have the option to compare more than 2 records?
Yeah, I can take that question.
Okay.
So in Spec Compare, as I said, that this is the initial version, and we are only allowing 2 records to be compared. But we already have a plan to roll out the updated version of this, and there we will allow up to 5 records to be compared against each other on the. So basically, in the next release, you will be able to compare up to 5 different records in a single screen, and those will be all, if there are any differences, those will be highlighted in the red background. So we already have that in our pipeline. Thank you for asking that question.
Okay, great. Thanks, Dharma. So that's all we have time for today. For any other questions we didn't get to, we'll be sending out an FAQ, and that'll hopefully take care of most of your questions or concerns. With that, we look forward to hearing from you. Thanks again. Have a great rest of your day.